And finally, if you haven't already guessed, because it is one of the most discussed trends, Hi, I'm Angela Murray, SHRM SCP, SBHR, and your favorite HR exam coach. If you're preparing for an upcoming SHRM exam, you need to be aware of the global trends that are impacting that exam. So since SHRM is a global organization, they are committed to remaining aware of any changes or any innovations that might affect the way that HR professionals do work or offer support to the organization. So the exam is going to reflect the shifts that are occurring in the larger environment. So if you notice a swing in people's attitudes or concerns or their expectations, you can bet that SHRM has also noticed that swing and included it in the exam. So in this video, I'm going to discuss some of the most impactful trends and how they're going to be reflected on your exam. The first trend is remote and hybrid work environments. And you know this is a big one because one of the biggest things that the global pandemic showed us is that remote work is highly possible and it's sustainable with the right plan. So as more and more people now begin to accept it and embrace remote work, the implications of that fall into the laps of HR. So the logistics, the policies, all of those require HR to make some changes. And of course, SHRM has developed some best practices around that. So that's going to be introduced to you on exam day. Remote work and hybrid work models are really driving us to innovate and adapt in a lot of ways. But one of the biggest concerns right now is cybersecurity. So strengthening our IT support, our cybersecurity measures to make sure that we are protecting the company data, making sure that we have operations that are set up smooth for those remote workers is a big consideration. So that collaboration between IT and HR is going to be reflected on your exam. So you're going to have some questions about the ethical use of data or setting up those remote work environments. For example, you might have a question that requires you to develop remote work policies that address data security or remote work stipends or even, setting up home offices or respond to some problems around any of those things. Another remote work consideration is employee engagement. That's going to be especially important at the SCP level because you can bet that you're going to be asked to drive some kind of initiative that makes sure that remote workers still feel like they are part of the organization and that they are not siloed and that employee engagement and retention is not suffering due to remote work. So make sure that when you are thinking about technology as a whole, you pay special attention to remote work and hybrid. Next is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this drive for DE&I in the global environment requires that HR professionals adopt more inclusive practices, and we promote equitable opportunities. The SHRM exam is going to reflect that as a priority. It is going to test you on your understanding and the application of those principles. So you're going to see that reflected in the organization's culture. They are going to ask you to demonstrate your ability to craft policies around that, policies that promote inclusion, like flexible work arrangements or accommodations. There is also going to be a push for the support of ERGs because ERGs do provide a platform for employees and it does foster that sense of belonging. And we are noticing now that belonging is taking a more central role in DE&I. So that's really important. Some of the other things that you might look out for is regular cultural training, maybe cultural competence training, unconscious bias, making sure that we are attracting candidates from diverse backgrounds, also making sure that we are including underrepresented groups. Those are all going to take a central role now in DE&I. The next global change is CSR and sustainability. This really has been more of a focus for about the last 5 years, and it's not going anywhere. So make sure that you have that in your lens. HR is expected to play a central role in embedding CSR practices into the organization and also crafting policies that support management's goals for the organizations around CSR. So you're going to be expected to understand the importance of sustainable business practices and environmental stewardship and how to integrate those into HR policies. Another obvious test question is around how CSR initiatives can enhance employer branding and attract talent, as well as just understanding, the role of CSR in employee engagement and employee satisfaction. Some of these scenarios are probably going to call for you to manage relationships with various stakeholders to promote these CSR initiatives, maybe employees, the community, government agencies. Really, a stakeholder is anybody who has a stake in the success or failure of the organization. So it could be anybody. But overall, you're just going to be expected to develop and implement CSR policies. That includes environmental sustainability, social responsibilities, ethical business practices, because that really is the charge for businesses in this climate, and we are going to be expected to support that. So like I said earlier, there has been this huge shift in the CSR direction. And I think the impact of COVID has given a spotlight. There were some opportunities for companies to, do things a little bit better. Maybe some things they were even doing wrong. And there was that public call for businesses to be more conscious and more socially responsible. So you're going to see that reflected on the SHRM exam. Another growing initiative is mental health. Now, to be honest, this one hasn't quite caught up yet like some of the other ones that we've talked about, but it is definitely on the horizon. And I can guarantee that you're going to start to see this shift really soon, especially if you're going to be testing in the winter window. So you're going to start to see even more initiatives that support employee well-being and more policies that account for exhaustion and mental health care. And of course, these best practices are going to make their way over to the SHRM exam. We are starting to see slight hints of it right now. You'll see more questions around employee well-being. But I suspect eventually it's going to be more blatant. They are going to blatantly address mental health and the importance of accounting for mental health and well-being in employees. So you're going to be tested on your understanding of the impact of mental health on employee engagement, maybe productivity and retention, or your knowledge of how to create a supportive work environment that addresses mental health needs. So this is a good place to address safety and health risk around mental health. So you'll probably see some questions about mental health and risk management. Obviously, communication is a good place for these mental health questions to be as well. Maybe relationship management and communication, both. The incorporation of mental health into training programs, that's also a good way to get some of these kind of questions in there also. So these are some of the areas that you should start to think about and start to prepare for. In general, there is a much bigger focus on the employee experience overall. And finally, if you haven't already guessed, because it is one of the most discussed trends, of course, is technology and automation, in particular, AI. So this global shift towards technology advancement and the use of AI is significantly impacting HR practices. And you will see this covered on the exam. So some of the things that you might see are the use of AI in recruitment, the use of AI in automation, HR analytics. Another thing that I don't think we discuss enough is the legal and ethical considerations associated with the use of technology. But I can bet you that SHRM and HRCI have thought about it, and I bet you're going to be tested on it. There are a lot of practical uses of technology that you need to think about, but you also need to be thinking outside of the box. Think about how AI can help us in change management, or how it could assist in data gathering or process efficiency. So these are really some of the biggest opportunities for your test questions around technology. So that wraps up today's video. But if you are currently studying to sit for an HR exam, don't be blindsided by these changes. The one thing I can say for SHRM and HRCI is that they do a really good job of keeping up with the changes on the horizon and then establishing best practices that reflect the world. So generally, if you see a shift around you or you notice some kind of trend around technology, engagement, whatever it is, you can bet that the exam administrators are already preparing for that. So let me know in the comments how your company is responding to some of these changes, or how it might impact the way that you study, or if you are doing anything differently at all. Let me know about, some of the things that you're concerned about, or if you're a recent test taker, let the other test takers know what big things you saw around these changes that we talked about. See you next time. Bye.